A civil rights lawsuit is coming, and the TBI has opened an investigation because of this videotape you saw first last night on Channel 4. The video shows a handcuffed man naked in the snow being repeatedly kicked, zapped with a taser, and beaten. The veteran attorney representing the beaten man says there are 3 critical moments in that tape that show beyond a doubt that police went too far. Channel 4's Dennis Ferrier broke the story yesterday. He's got the newest developments tonight.
Police respond to a shots fired call outside of Waverly. Humphreys County Sheriff's Deputy James McCord approaches 35-year-old Darrin Ring and asks him to take his hands out of his pocket.
Take your hands out of your pockets and leave them out of your pockets.
In McCord's police report, he says Ring refuses, puts his hands in his pockets, steps away, and then angles his body towards him and smiles. Attorney David Rabin says the tape shows differently.
But Ring never steps back and never turns. And then he said, take your hands out of your pockets, and as you can see, his hands are not anywhere near his pockets.
Humphreys County Sheriff's Deputy Tim Hedge says as he approaches the scene, he says Darrin Ring reaches out and grabs at Deputy Lee's gun, but was not able to retrieve it from the holster. At this point, the defendant was taken to the ground. Again, Attorney Rabin says, where did Ring try to grab the gun before he was on the ground? Once on the ground, Ring is handcuffed within a minute, but is nevertheless beaten intermittently for the next 6 to 7 minutes.
What you should have had right here is these officers handcuff him and lift him bodily, if they had to, into the police car. There was no need for this. He was not a threat to anyone. He wasn't doing anything. This was nothing more than gratuitous violence.
When Waverly City Police Officer Parnell arrives, he brings out a taser, and things get very confusing.
What about his injuries? Ring's injuries?
Yeah, 4 broken ribs, a punctured lung as well. So that's part of the story.
And snow was on the ground. You've got to wonder why it's taken this long for someone to look closely at this tape.
Well, he's naked as well, and if he was naked, it's obvious he doesn't have a weapon. So why do you continue beating when he's naked? That's another point they're making. I mean, there are a lot of points out there.
A lot of
story.
questions.
Yeah.
Dennis, thank you.
Dennis, thank you.
Tonight, all charges have been dropped against that man you've seen on tape being kicked and beaten by Humphreys County deputies. The DA now says the man arrested, Darrin Ring, didn't do anything wrong that night, so Ring walked out of jail today. That happened at the same time the FBI handed out grand jury subpoenas all over the county. And several witnesses have now come forward saying Ring endured even more violence after the cameras stopped rolling. Channel 4's Dennis Ferrier broke this story last week. He's here with the newest developments tonight. Dennis?
Darrin Rings stops on a Sonic on his way home to New Johnsonville. Just this morning, he was charged with aggravated assault and resisting arrest. Tonight, all charges dropped. Darrin Rings claims he didn't commit a crime, now supported by the state.
And I just wasn't comfortable with what I know about the case, leaving him in jail pending a trial. Given the facts of this case.
Public Defender Jake Lockhart says the Humphreys County deputies and Waverly officers who beat and tasered Ring could not write an arrest report that could overcome the evidence shown on the video.
He was not told that he was under arrest. He was simply taken to the ground, and after he's taken to the ground, everyone who's seen the video sees what's happened.
Today, the FBI and TBI served federal grand jury subpoenas to the Humphreys County Sheriff's Department. One of the new allegations the TBI and FBI will be investigating is that Darrin Ring was beaten and tasered again in jail while handcuffed in a cell.
Sheriff was over here, and he had his hands up on that cement bench, and he was going down on his knees on him over and over. While Deputy Tim Hedge is standing on top of Darrin's head.
After that, Barbie says a young female jailer told a Waverly police officer she had never seen anyone tased.
She said, "I've never seen that. I want to see him get tased. I want to see that." Parnell goes in there and he grabs him by his head. He tells him to stand up at first, but he can't stand up because his hands are handcuffed to his feet. He can't stand up. And he keeps telling him to, and Darrin keeps saying, "I can't." So he grabs his head and he rams it into the wall, and then Kente Bell comes in behind him and tases him.
If we're presented with an order for expungement, we will gladly sign that.
And so now there will be no record of Darrin Ring being arrested in February, other than the video of the beating that will live much longer in other courts, in other places. Public Defender Jake Lockhart suggested more. He wanted Judge Larry Wallace to rule that the officer's actions were so outrageous that under no circumstances could it ever come up again. Judge Wallace felt that was an unnecessary and premature step.
Because, again, the court does not believe it has subject matter jurisdiction at this time, and because the issue is not yet ripe legally.
And so the 9 witnesses lined up to testify never took the stand. Lockhart had subpoenaed witnesses for the first beating, witnesses for a jailhouse beating, and something new that the TBI and FBI are looking into.
I had proof that jailers were asked to change, and in fact did change, incident reports. I don't know at this point how far up that went, but I have talked to the jailers and verified that they did alter reports. Some of them would not talk to me in detail about it and told me that I would just have to wait till they were on the witness stand.
But they did not get to the witness stand today. However, they are telling their story to the FBI and TBI. Of course, this becomes a matter separate of the beating with totally new legal implications.
And a lot of concern, though. I mean, is there a computer record? Is there something to compare before and after on these incident reports?
Well said. And the public in Humphreys County, they are dying to get this to a conclusion while these men stay on administrative leave with pay.
Okay. Channel 4 has discovered a history of misconduct allegations against one of the same sheriff's deputies shown in this video beating a naked handcuffed suspect. Last year, a federal judge ruled that Humphreys County deputy went way too far during an arrest, and it got him and his department sued. The man taken into custody that day says it was nothing more than police committing a home invasion. Channel 4's Dennis Ferrier broke this story. He has another new development tonight you'll see only on Channel 4.
Tricia Cottom was a passenger in a bad accident. She had a concussion. Her toe was cut off, heavily sedated and resting at home. There's a knock on the door. It's Deputy Tim Hedge, one of the deputies under investigation in the Darrin Ring beating. Tricia's husband, James Cottom, answers the door.
This is Timothy Hedge. I don't know if it's the right word, but he bowed up on me, and he asked me 3 different times in a real argumentative type tone that he was going to get his way or else. And he asked me the 3rd time, and I said, I'm going to tell you again, Mr. Hedge, that you're not coming in my house without a search warrant.
Hedge returns not with a search warrant, but with a warrant for obstruction of justice, a warrant for the arrest of James Cottom for not allowing him to search his house without a warrant.
There were 3 of them. They came in, they threw me up against the wall, they beat me on the ground, they put their knees in my head, and I kept saying the whole time, I'm not resisting you guys, I'm not resisting you guys.
Humphreys County Jail are the subject of a full-scale federal investigation. But it's neither that investigation or the video that led to the firing of the officers this week. It was the crippling price of paying 20% of your patrol officers to sit at home. Expensive and not good for public safety.
And that's been compromised because of this shortfall in our workforce. So this step was brought about not because of the investigation, the results which are still pending, but rather from an economic perspective.
County Executive Jesse Wallace says without a speedy conclusion, Sheriff Chris Davis, under investigation himself, had to fire the men before the investigation was complete. 23rd Judicial District Public Defender Jake Lockhart says it shouldn't have taken this long.
They're finally recognizing what the people have recognized all along, and what anybody with a lick of common sense who watched the video of his beating would recognize, is that these people don't need to be working for the Sheriff's Department.
Lockhart says Darrin Ring, who suffered multiple injuries during this beating, has still not been treated like a victim, and that is another crime.
If 5 citizens had stripped the clothing off of another citizen and beaten and tasered and kicked that citizen until they broke his ribs, punctured his lung, that victim would have seen charges brought quickly.
Well, it means there's some serious matters that need to be looked at, and I project that there'll probably be a day-long presentation, which involve witnesses from the TBI and probably other witnesses.
Humphreys County deputies Tim Hedge, Benji Lee, and James McCord, as well as Waverly Police Officer Joe Parnell, will be judged by a grand jury. But the sheriff of the county, Chris Davis, who is not on videotape, is still a big part of the investigation.
It's been established that he was actually at the scene while Mr. Ring was being beaten. Clearly from the video, he did not intervene. I think the people of Humphreys County are tired of this, and they want to see something done about it.
Many Humphreys County citizens feel their sheriff's department has lost all credibility and that something should have been done sooner than December 5th. District Attorney Alsobrook says the investigation has been very thorough and worth the wait.
There's always a few alarmists that want to say the sky is falling, and I haven't seen any evidence of that. Like I said, a little bit awkward in law enforcement there, but for the most part, I see business getting done.
Humphreys County bail bondsman Michelle McCarson was bailing out a local man when she noticed two homeless men charged with vandalism talking with jailers.
We noticed the jailers were having a conversation with these two gentlemen, and they were being instructed that they were allowed to sign out of jail. They were given directions to leave town and pointed right to the interstate.
McCarson followed the two men and took pictures as they hiked to the interstate. Patrick Ponder and Andrew Zalesny. It took us 5 minutes to figure out the two men are wanted in 4 states for a variety of crimes. So who authorized their outright release? A jailer named Tammy Ross, shown here chatting with Sheriff Chris Davis, signed the release form per instructions of General Sessions Judge Haley Bradford Maples. The only problem, Judge Maples said she did not okay their release, did not agree to anything. In fact, she says she was never even asked about the two men.
I'm very bothered by this, and I have requested that the District Attorney's Office follow up with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and ask for an independent investigation in this situation to determine if there's been any misconduct involved. I'm not happy about this situation. And from this point further, there won't be any more per Judge Bradley Maples. If I approve something, my signature will be on the document.
Meanwhile, Zalesny and Ponder are now wanted in 5 states. They, of course, did not show up for their vandalism hearing today.
To me, it's just going to invite more into this county. If you can come into our county, do as you wish, and for whatever reason, you know, don't worry about it. If they want you out of town, you'll sign your own bond and go on to the next county or the next victim, and who knows, you know, where it's going to end.
A call for a TBI investigation, boy, does that have a familiar ring. The TBI is already up here. In fact, we saw them here today investigating for the Darrin Ring beating. More problems for the sheriff of Humphreys County. In Waverly, I'm Dennis Ferrier, Channel 4 News.
Channel 4 News at 6 tonight. A woman is set to meet with the FBI to discuss her 10-year affair with a local sheriff.
The same sheriff who was embroiled in a state and federal investigation over a brutal police beating caught on camera. Now come accusations the sheriff used county equipment and spent work time in pursuit of pleasure when he was supposed to be on the clock protecting the taxpayers. Dennis Ferrier is here now with a Channel 4 I-Team exclusive.
Demetria, the woman would only speak to us if we protected her identity. She's a professional with a career, tons of family, and is trying to avoid embarrassing them. She described a 10-year affair with Humphreys County Sheriff Chris Davis. She says that affair ended as soon as the sheriff learned he was the target of a TBI investigation a few months ago. This is mature subject matter, and we've worked hard to be tasteful. Why then is she coming forward? She's about to tell her story to the FBI and suggested to us that the sheriff's conduct constitutes an abuse of power. Sheriff Chris Davis and the Humphreys County Sheriff's Department are facing a multi-agency criminal investigation. You'll remember an unarmed man, Darrin Rings, was beaten and tasered for 10 minutes. Later at the jail, still handcuffed, there are allegations Rings was beaten some more, that Sheriff Chris Davis joined in that beating, and that of all things, Rings was tasered again for the amusement of a female jailer.
Laughing about him and everything, you know. Once you're handcuffed and you're shackled, and you're locked in a cell, what do they need to do that to you for?
The 3 officers caught on video have been fired, and all charges against Darrin Rings were quickly dropped. However, Sheriff Chris Davis remains sheriff, while criminal investigators pour through his computer, in-jail videos, interviews, and police reports. But now, new evidence. A former lover talks about her 10-year affair with the sheriff, an affair that brings up questions of possible official misconduct.
I got involved with Sheriff Davis first as a friend and acquaintance, and then it ended up being a romantic, sexually involvement.
In court this minute, leaving here about 10:30 or 11, running guys to Nashville to pick up cars. And then we'll be all alone. 10:34 a.m. on July the 1st. Can we get a room for a while? There are other texts involving X-rated language that we choose not to share. There are also pictures of the sheriff naked, texted from the sheriff's county-funded phone. So how does Sheriff Davis respond to these allegations? What's his side of the story? Sheriff Davis is speaking through his attorney, Philip Davidson, who told us, quote, "I'm not saying this did happen or this didn't happen. I will tell you this. A sheriff is on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are just going to wait and see what this woman says, and we may have comments afterwards," unquote. The woman will be interviewed by the FBI next week. She says she attempted to end the affair for a year, but Sheriff Davis would not let her go.
He bullies. I was always afraid. Still am. He would intimidate constantly.
She said she feels guilty and embarrassed, but she felt trapped and scared.
I was followed several times out of the county. I would leave my job and deputy cars would be behind me all the way to the county line. One evening, he had wanted me to meet him, and I was pulled over by a deputy on a dark road. Got really nervous because I was on the phone with him at the time, and he's like, "It's okay, it's okay." He was watching the whole ordeal.
He was watching.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The woman says Sheriff Davis ended the affair when he found he was being investigated. Since then, they have continued texting occasionally, but the affair is over.
I'm relieved that it's over, and I'd like to see it never happen to someone else.
This story, along with the criminal investigation, is really starting to bother people in Humphreys County. This week's County Commission meeting was packed with citizens, off-duty officers, even a local judge, as a citizens group asked the Commission to begin ouster proceedings.
You have the power to remove the sheriff for violations of moral turpitude. We would like to know if you plan to do so.
But the County Commission instead elected to not even discuss Sheriff Davis's conduct.
And we're just fed up with it. Just the citizens of Humphreys County are exhausted. We just want some relief. We want something done about it.
23rd District Public Defender Jake Lockard has reviewed the texts, photographs, and other evidence regarding Sheriff Davis's alleged affair with this woman.
I think it certainly falls under moral turpitude. The statute actually talks about crimes involving moral turpitude. There are crimes involved in her allegations. Certainly misuse of county funds or state funds, county vehicles, and then purely from the moral standpoint. Those are just the type things that the citizens of this county, I would think, would not tolerate.
I spoke with County Executive Jesse Wallace this afternoon. He gave me this statement, quote, "I understand that some citizens may have presumed differently, but the fact remains that neither the County Commission nor my office has the power to initiate ouster proceedings. By statute, the power is reserved for the district attorney. Ultimately, the DA must evaluate the evidence and file suit if and when he feels it's justified. I'm confident he's watching the situation very closely." Tomorrow night, the president of the Sheriff's Association weighs into this story, and we will sit down with the county executive as well. Demetria? Mr. Wallace says county commissions don't fire elected officials. It's the Constitution. It's America. It's just how things work.
The only thing the county attorney could do would be redundant to what's already being done.
Mr. Wallace refers to the TBI, DA, and FBI investigations into Sheriff Chris Davis. That investigation revolves around the beating and tasering of an unarmed man, first on a patrol call, and then a second alleged beating in the jailhouse, where witnesses say Sheriff Chris Davis delivered some of the heavy blows. Add to all this, a woman who comes forward with details of an alleged 10-year affair, who provides hundreds of texts from the sheriff, including naked pictures he sent to her with his county phone, and descriptions of daytime business hour rendezvous all over the county, sometimes in the sheriff's car. She also says she was followed and intimidated by the sheriff and some of his deputies.
I'm sick of people who are in authority abusing that power.
Tennessee Sheriff Association President Jeff Long is a former TBI man, assistant DA, and now sheriff of Williamson County. He doesn't want to interfere with the investigation, but he will tell you that any Middle Tennessee sheriff should be held to the highest possible moral standards.
It has to be above any approach, I think. I think any law enforcement officer should be above that. As I said, we're judged to a higher standard, and rightfully so, and we should live up to that standard.
Sheriff Long says if any of his employees texted naked pictures, met anyone for sex in a parking lot, in a sheriff's vehicle, it would not be tolerated.
But if you're doing own business, sure, everyone knows that's not right.
In Middle Tennessee County, its sheriff and 5 law officers are being sued tonight.
And it all boils down to a question of training. Channel 4 was first to show you this videotape. An unarmed man who had committed no crime being beaten and tasered by deputies in Humphreys County. Tonight, we've learned a 40-page, multi-million-dollar lawsuit has been filed claiming the beating was unconstitutional and the result of poor training. Channel 4's Dennis Ferrier joins us now with the rest of the story. Dennis?
For Darrin Rings used a high-tech device to improve the audio on the police tape of the beating. Lawyers for Rings say that new enhanced audio further proves that Ring was savagely beaten for no reason.
Roll over to your stomach.
Police officers have the right to use force to restrain citizens, but the Constitution does not allow excessive force, especially when the person being beaten by police has not committed a crime.
This lawsuit alleges that Mr. Ring was not violating any law and was brutally attacked by multiple police officers, beaten, stripped of his clothes, and tasered repeatedly while he's laying naked in the snow.
The lawsuit reveals new enhanced audio where one officer says, quote, "I'm missing a damn good movie on account of all this blank." As we reported earlier with our own enhanced audio, Officer Benji Lee stated, quote, "This guy is a douche, let's blank him up." Do comments like this affect the lawsuit?
The words spoken, which are matters you can hear by everyone, not only show what was done physically, but shows the intent.
Here are the people being sued. Sheriff Deputies Tim Hedge, James McCord, Benji Lee. Waverly Police Officer Joe Parnell sued for tasering Ring repeatedly while he was handcuffed, tased and told to move, tased when he moved, tased when he didn't move.
The taser is designed to immobilize a person. You can't expect a citizen to respond to a verbal command when they're being tased with intent to immobilize them.
Sheriff Chris Davis sued for allegedly beating Ring in the jail while Ring was shackled hands to feet. Waverly Police Officer Kinte Bell sued for tasering Ring so that a female jailer could see what it looked like. And then Humphreys County itself.
A jury's going to have to decide whether or not this training is consistent with the Constitution. The sheriff has already said in a publicly released document that this was all okay, that this was consistent with their training.